Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Clifford Murray, and I'm the founder of Empowerment for Tomorrow. And this platform, known as Cliff's Office, is simply an extension of Empowerment for Tomorrow. As you can see in the title, I thought it was a good time to maybe review and then establish some resolve on what the platform has been able to conduct so far with these videos. Again, Cliff's Office is an extension of Empowerment for Tomorrow. I explained in my inaugural video, if you will, that Empowerment for Tomorrow was a platform that I developed 10, 11 years ago, somewhere abouts, and where I've tried to target Black male youth only between the ages of 14 and 19. The caveat with that age window is that their biological father, and if that biological father is not available, a male stakeholder, maybe he has an older brother, a grandfather, an uncle, someone in the young man's life, but that individual would have to be present at those live presentations of Empowerment for Tomorrow. I had 2 or 3 of them, got somewhat frustrated with that boots on the ground type of deal, going to churches, going to communities, different organizations, trying to get Black men in the community to support this effort, if you will. Empowerment for Tomorrow, establishing synergy between older men such as myself. And when I say older men such as myself, I'm talking about men, even if you're 35, 40 years old, but you've seen some experiences, had some things, understand. But I will continue to explain about what this channel in Empowerment for Tomorrow and Cliff's Office is about. You too could be a mentor or an example to these young men. The bottom line is older men have to establish synergy with our young men, even at the ripe old age of 14, I believe, to plant the right seeds in their minds moving forward. Like I've said on many occasions, there's a reason why I call it Empowerment for Tomorrow. I sure as hell can't call it Empowerment for Today with all of the bone biscuit, beta, butter biscuit, coon nigger surrogates that we have all over the place. Quite frankly, we've had them throughout our existence, and they've done a damn good job of undermining Black empowerment. But at any rate, Empowerment for Tomorrow, at its foundational core, was to introduce a different mindset. One of the, if you want to use marketing slogans on my business cards back in the day, was setting a new benchmark for our male youth. Black male youth, ridiculous, out of control in so many aspects of Black America. In our so-called stalwart institutions, if you will, the Black church, Black politicians, Black educators, don't seem to have a damn clue as to what to do and why. But at any rate, Empowerment for Tomorrow, those live presentations would be on Saturday. They'd last a day, like a full day in elementary school, high school, and we would go over a myriad of topics affecting Black men specifically, and not just me running my mouth and putting quotes and videos up on the PowerPoint presentation, but having some resolve, some resolutions as to how we have to move and navigate this system of white supremacy. Make no mistake about it, gentlemen. The black community in general, overall, we know we don't own and control practically anything. The knock on our demographic is that we are consumers. We generally aren't looked at as producers of anything other than maybe the entertainment industry. And establishing a lot of things in the minds of these young men that, quite frankly, they're probably not going to hear anywhere else. A very hard, strong, water in your face, look in the mirror type of assessment and viewpoint as to what we as black men have to do to lend itself toward black empowerment. And it's a shame, but quite frankly, I believe we'll never get there without our youth, black male youth, turning this thing around. Even Adolf Hitler realized if he was going to marshal world domination at his inception, he made it a point to start with the youth first. Convince them at a very early age on what the Third Reich and all of its ugliness was designed to do. And they bought it hook, line, and sinker. You know the story, the rest is history about that. But his motive operandi was to first get the youth, get them on board. Well, we're certainly not looking for world domination and nowhere near the ugly evil that Hitler did, but the principle therein, get the youth. Hell, we got parents out here. That's one of the things you're establishing with your children and laying a foundation on what they need to do. And as a father myself, I for years used a statement, as the father, I establish what's truth for my children. I remember an interview a long time ago where a reporter, and I'm going to paraphrase this, some of you may be old enough to maybe remember this, or I don't know. Some reporter was asking Pat Riley when he coached the Lakers, and Magic Johnson and James Worthy, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, the Lakers, if any of you follow sports and understand sports history, the Lakers practically had an all-star team within themselves. It was them and the Celtics going back and forth all the time, setting the benchmark for excellence in basketball, quite frankly. But anyway, Pat Riley was coaching the Lakers, and a reporter sort of, it must be easy for you, Mr. Riley, to coach players the likes of Magic Johnson and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Must be kind of simple considering how great these basketball players are. And again, I'm paraphrasing, but Pat Riley shut that reporter down in its tracks. Yes, I have great players, but make no mistake about it. I'm the head coach, and I define what is truth in basketball. And they acknowledge what I define. I'm a black man. I'm a black father. My children understand that I define what is truth. Empowerment for Tomorrow, Cliff's office. This platform is designed to target black men who understand it's okay to be unapologetically black. It's okay to be high dominant conscientious. It's okay to understand that as black men, we provide and protect for our women and children and throughout the community as well. We don't take no shit from nobody, and we don't take no shit from white supremacy and white men, white boys, you name it. There's some terms that have been bounced around more and more as buzzwords to define men and women and so forth. You know, we've got the beta male, the alpha male, and so forth. If those convey, okay, fine. This channel is definitely not for black men who don't understand the importance of where they are and how we have to lead and fit in the proper dynamics to get our community to black empowerment. Now, if that's alpha male, alpha king, if that conveys, okay, fine, great. I used a term earlier that I picked up from being out here in this cyberspace with Bussy, Bussy, referring to a black man who is just essentially weak in all aspects, has no sense of direction and so forth. Well, that certainly, you would not be welcome here. Cowards. In one of my live presentations, I defined what a coward was to the young men and their fathers who were present. For purposes of empowerment for tomorrow, a coward is a black man or a black woman who is mentally and spiritually cowardice. You've heard me say on a couple of videos, I think by now, particularly centered around the black church, black clergy, the Congressional Black Caucus, our political aspect of our community, and our black educators, there's not enough yellow paint to fill the cowardice groove we've got running through black America. It's unbelievable. And I think it's a stench to our Heavenly Father's nostrils, the Most High God, the creator of all. That type of cowardice is a stench to his nostrils. We're ridiculous. We have black men and women in our community who are ridiculously, pathetically cowardice. And this is not helping our younger generation worth a damn. If you're a black man who understands that, fine, come on, welcome. We could use you. Leave a comment in the comment section. If you're a beta male, Bussy, butter biscuit, coon Negro, stay the hell off, stay the hell out. So in this review, going back over it, those are some of the things I talked about in my inaugural video, who and what this channel is for and what it's about. We got some serious problems. Playtime's been over in black America for a long time as black America, on my assessment, and I don't think it's, if you've got a brain in your head, the black community continues to be America's permanent underclass. And I think the next video I got into was the importance of image for black men. This channel, of course, 99.9% of what I'm talking about is seen through the lens of black men and how it affects us. Make no damn mistake about it. The black community will be right. Our black women and black children will be right when black men are right and functioning as our Heavenly Father intended us to function in and for our community. I've personally defined, if you will, black empowerment as by us, for us, because of us. That does not mean we go out and sow discord with other demographics. We don't go out here and establish some type of crazy shenanigans with other demographics that white supremacy has defined as minorities, the Asian, Latino, Hispanic, Middle Eastern, and other, whoever the hell they are. Still waiting for somebody to explain that with all of our black and brown commentators of black political bobblehead coon Negro surrogates on these CNN, MSNBC. They got a few over at Fox News as well. Not here to sow any discord. As a overall community, I think it would be pretty obvious to see that that's not even part of our cultural DNA as black people in this country. We're the peculiar, as Dr. Claude Anderson likes to use. We are the peculiar demographic in that we're the only ones, black Americans, parenthetical insert, American descendants of slavery, ADOS, that have the dubious, unfortunate distinction of having our lineage run through chattel slavery. Saw a video not too long ago where Dr. Martin Luther King was articulating that to a group of people, I believe, at a press conference, as Dr. King put them in their place regarding the matter. He pointed out we're the only demographic with that unfortunate, ugly distinction. And as black men, getting back to the review, I talked about image. Is your image, and let me see if I can find some of these things. I think I showed this ridiculous image and talked about what its origins were steeped in. This right here, pants hanging off your ass, versus a positive image that I brought up with showing you a picture or so of the cover of Ebony Man and how the importance of image conveys a lot with the way you dress, look. It says something about your inward mindset as well as what you're trying to articulate to the rest of society and the rest of the community. And my question centered around that was, when you walk out of the door, the way you're dressed alone, would it be an image we would be proud of, or is it an image that plays right into the hands of white supremacy? So we talked about that with respect to image. We also looked at, and not just with the way you dress, but how you talk, how you articulate, how you communicate words, your diction, your voice inflection, your enunciation. All of that is important towards your image. It conveys a sense of intelligence. It conveys a sense of what your mindset is about subject matters and so forth. And from what I've seen, particularly with you young men, significantly under the age of 30, even though I've seen some 30 and 40-year-old men, some even in my age window, who don't represent the best of image, but particularly you ones significantly under the age of 30. You need to have your stuff together and get your stuff together right with respect to your image, look, as well as your delivery on communication. We talked about distractions. This critical race theory thing, as I said at its onset, would be a big distraction. I talked about voting rights and the whole voting scenario and how that's been a huge distraction with respect to the black community for political gain. This country has never done anything politically, specifically for black Americans to operate in what they define as the American dream. Now, God's grace obviously has allowed some black people and our black community overall, considering all of the premeditated things from chattel slavery all the way up to present day shenanigans, it's been God's grace that has allowed the black community to survive and thrive in some instances. But make no mistake, black America, black men, it has never been the United States of America's intention for black America to operate on an equal level playing field as white America. And my God, during the Trump administration and even going into this Biden administration, if you haven't seen that, we don't have a quid pro quo mindset. We just give our vote away. Quid pro quo is that Latin term, you get something from me if I get something from you. That's the very essence of politics. You see it play out every day between Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the House, Democrat, and Mitch McConnell, the Republican leader. They're always jockeying for power and position to trump the other competitor to get their points across. And so much of it is still steeped in money and finances at the very root to establish power. I held up a sheet showing you Reverend Al Sharpton and them marching with a banner talking about protecting our power. That has been that's like a trick of the devil. They've done a damn good job, white America, white supremacy, who runs that arm in the political sphere, of convincing black people that they actually have power in voting. And what my mother used to say, may she rest in peace, if you've got a mosquito's ounce of common damn sense, it ought to be pretty clear from a political standpoint, we never get what we were promised, so to speak, from our Democratic, and it's primarily them. The black demographic has historically, since World War II, sided with the Democratic Party. Before then, overwhelmingly, believe it or not, the black vote, and particularly before 1920, where black men were allowed to vote from 1870, after emancipation in the Reconstruction period, where black men only were allowed to vote. They were heavily entrenched in the Republican Party. There was a different ideology. Now that's switched and changed around, and for decades within the modern era, if you want to use that phraseology, the black vote is pretty much synonymous with the Democratic Party. Neither party, Democrat or Republican, again, has never, 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 never done a damn thing specifically for Black America. We've even had a Black president that I've talked about before on previous videos, where I've mentioned where when he was asked questions about things specifically for Black America, he acquiesced to statements, well, how would our Latino and other minorities feel about this and that? He had no intention to do anything specifically for Black people as well. The first Black president, but he might as well have been, with respect to the Black community, just another white man in the Oval Office. For what we got out of it, which again was practically nothing. We never do. I talked about Black Lives Matter being a distraction. Showed you pictures of the founding members, all female, LGBTQ. Talked to you about their website and overall mission and mantra. They cloak it in Black Lives Matter and a Black social consciousness, awareness, and Black social activism. But it ought to be pretty simple for anyone to understand that they're primarily concerned with Black LGBTQ first and foremost. It's kind of like the Congressional Black Caucus. The name should imply all things Black for Black, yet the Congressional Black Caucus, overwhelmingly, if not all Democratic, they're party first. And they play the political shenanigan games in the Beltway. They never get around to doing anything specifically for Black people either. And yet, obviously, their overwhelming constituency that allowed them to have these positions in Congress and in the Senate and in the Senate and in various political spheres, from municipalities all the way up to the presidency, particularly with Obama. They couldn't get there, certainly without a heavy dose of their very own Black people voting for them. And yet they're Black and they do nothing for Blacks. Black Lives Matter, their leadership, I use the term implosion. Colors, one of the founding members, she stepped down, went on a very expensive real estate shopping spree. A lot of public relation misfires and miscues with that. What's the money being really utilized for? Several of their satellite locations around the country, those leaders there, which are mostly female, you go on their website and it's pretty clear no men needed or wanted from a leadership standpoint. I mean, the fact that they practice a LGBTQ lifestyle, that shouldn't shock anyone. Their intimate lifestyle that they're practicing says no men wanted. So it shouldn't shock anyone that Black Lives Matter, which, good, bad, or ugly, is one of the most prolific social organizations under the banner of Black social activism. I think they've eclipsed the NAACP and Urban League and you name it. They've galvanized a young core. I explained several other things about Black Lives Matter from a critical thinking standpoint. But overall, big distraction. And because they advocate for the LGBTQ primarily, as well as no Black male leadership, they play right into the hands of white supremacy. Then we had the critical race thinking scenario. that's been going around like a house of fire. I told you that the assessment from this platform, again, another distraction. We've got bigger fish to fry. Critical race theory. It's really being utilized as it's been weaponized as a political tool between the Republican and Democratic parties, and they drape it in the Republican Party drapes it in you're going to cause an even greater divide among the races. And I always say, been hearing this for decades. Who's the demographic that causes all of the divide amongst everybody? It's the white Anglo-Saxon demographic. Overall, by and large, Black America, we have the tools and resources to actually cause division. Give me a break. Asian Americans, Latino, Hispanic Americans, no. Everything is always set against white supremacy, and they being and wanting to be just that. There's a hierarchy that they've established. For centuries, they've gone out and set up with premeditated intentions to keep minorities, specifically us. We're on the bottom of that hierarchy. That's what they rest their foot on, to ensure that nobody, not any demographic whatsoever, can come and challenge them at any level. And the critical race theory establishes what Black America definitely should already know. If you get it in schools or not, who cares? If we don't understand that from chattel slavery to Reconstruction to emancipation to promulgated systemic racism, obviously white America has been at the forefront on establishing all of that. Just tickles me to death when I hear these political pundits and everybody on TV. The country's divided. The country's divided. Who always causes the damn country to be divided? What damn group does that? Speaking of which, last week, this is Condoleezza Rice. You may remember her, the Bush administration, Secretary of State. She followed in the footsteps of, may he rest in peace, Colin Powell. On The View last week, she makes a statement that white children should not be made to feel guilty about what their ancestors have done with respect to Black Americans. I'm always making an appeal for us older men to certainly have some of these. If you're listening to me and you have that 14 to 19-year-old age window, and if some of you don't even understand the following statements, well, get ready to understand them. I want to talk about a bigger scenario here with critical thinking as it relates to what white supremacy likes to do. I've said a million times that the news media is a very formidable ally of white supremacy. You got to start thinking critically. You got to start learning how to mentally and spiritually play chess and not checkers. White America is always playing chess. Black America seems to always be playing checkers. Right on the heels of Colin Powell's death, we get Condoleezza Rice to come out on a national platform like The View. See, right there, this should not be some damn coincidence. Again, right on the heels of Colin Powell's death, the first black, and he had a lot of firsts in his career. I served with him, not with him, but he was part of my chain of command when I was in the Navy as the first black Joint Chief of Staff. Then he would go on to be the first black Secretary of State and so forth. Anyway, his Padawan, Condoleezza Rice, comes in and makes this statement on a platform like The View. Now, I've said in other things, and even in my live presentations years ago with Empowerment for Tomorrow, this is not happenstance. And unfortunately, white supremacy continues to do a good job. We do have more black people, I think, waking up, but it's still maybe a couple of more drops in the Atlantic Ocean. But anyway, with respect to critical thinking, you've heard me say a lot of times 7 out of 10 black people don't think critically about a damn thing. I represent one of the 3 that do. In order for black empowerment to get really turned around and moved in the direction we need it to go, that statement's got to be flipped around. But white supremacy rolls out Condoleezza Rice to make that statement. There have been other statements made by other people regarding the critical race theory. Even a black professor, I think I talked to you guys about on a previous video, who made a statement along the lines of that would just crush the souls of white children. Who gives a damn? In a sense, and I don't mean to say that with going out to purposely any child. Children are important. You have to watch and conduct yourself on anything. But as far as critical race theory being taught in a curriculum to where it's history that shows what white America has done through promulgated systemic racism to keep groups, particularly black America, first and foremost, because white America has also fostered to these other minority groups. They're better than those Negroes. That's another kind of topic on another day, but there you go. The hierarchy of white supremacy, white at the very top, the black demographic at the very bottom. So if these things are going to be conveyed in critical race theory in public schools, and I believe it's a big distraction, because as we continue to see, a whole lot of energy is going to be put into challenging these shenanigans, and we've got bigger fish to fry overall as it pertains to black empowerment. But Condoleezza Rice comes out, makes a statement like this. She's a bigger name than some of these other people who've made these statements. I was waiting for when they were going to roll out a big dog. Now, James Clyburn, he made some, it's just a red herring, and remember, it's theory. So politically, one of the most powerful black man from a political standpoint in America. But now we have Condoleezza Rice, both of which I was listening to her statements on The View. She, part of the Republican Party, but James Clyburn, a Democrat, they both used the critical race theory from a political juggernaut to try to get their points across with critical race theory. James Clyburn being Uncle Ruckus, coon nigga number 1 surrogate, It's just theory. So that was his slick ass way of saying it's just a theory, as if to say white America, white supremacy, has had nothing to do with premeditated systemic racism. This is basically what James Clyburn was saying. And now Condoleezza Rice on The View, a woman talk show, far-reaching demographics with women across America. I believe unless some things have changed significantly, black women watch more television than any demographic in the United States. And now you got someone like Condoleezza Rice coming on TV like that. Now, I think Whoopi Goldberg, she established some good points as to why critical race theory should simply be another aspect throughout the emotionalism, Condoleezza, and let it be another aspect of just American history. We've taught slavery, we've taught this and that, and now we're going to do this. But Condoleezza was coming from the emotional side, just like that professor. Then you got James Clyburn. It's just theory. Distractions. Then we moved further down where I talked about the tenets of empowerment for tomorrow. Discernment, intelligence, and balance. Got to get that across to our 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19-year-olds. Discernment, intelligence, and balance, gentlemen. Older gentlemen, we've got to get that across to them. If discernment, intelligence, and balance are processed properly, everything from the prison to pipeline incarceration shenanigan would drop off. So many things would drop off in our community. I talked about the 5 areas of strength, the 5 areas that black men should be operating from. Spiritual, financial, mental, physical, and professional. Even went as far as to tell our young men in particular, if you're not operating with respect to where you are in life as a young man, you're going to come across that part of your life where you're probably going to think about getting married and having a family. I would strongly caution you not to go down that aisle talking about I do, unless relative to your situation, you're operating from a position of strength in those 5 areas. And the woman you've fallen in love with and you want to spend the rest of your life with respect to her situation, she needs to understand why you value that, and she needs to be operating from a position of strength relative to her role in the same damn thing, spiritually, financially, mentally, physically, and professionally. In this title, Review and Resolution, resolution is derived from the word resolved. We're going to continue to go through the syllabus. We're going to continue to access and make assessments, unfortunately, on some of the stupid, dumbass crap that continues to go on in our community. A lot of it being triggered, of course, by white supremacy, but more so now, we've got to get to a point to where we understand where it's coming from and who and why and what. Now, what the hell are we going to do? What plans of attack and resolutions of resolve do we have in play as black men to take care of damn business? In my 2 cents toward this black empowerment, one of my stakeholders told me you couldn't have picked a bigger Mount Everest to climb up, Cliff. You're going at America's #1 public enemy. You're going for the juggler, black men. Make no damn mistake about it. The microcosm of the macrocosm of the black America, black men. White supremacy will do everything it has to ensure that black man does not rise up in any aspect. And of course, that would mean where it generates an epicenter type of thing. So many of these black men that are in some of these exclusive, if you will, exclusivity end of the socioeconomic ladder rung have been allowed to be there. They've been allowed to be there. And as I've pointed out, white men who run white supremacy are not going to be agitated, irritated. They cannot be left to feel uncomfortable in any kind of way, threatened and or, if you want to use the word, intimidated. If they feel threatened and or / intimidated, irritated, just uncomfortable, and they're generally going to exhibit that around black men such as myself, black men such as the ones that this channel is about, then that black man is not going to be allowed to function in certain areas. They'll do everything to stop that. And I think I gave you examples of those type of men that white supremacy, in a sense, would not have a problem with. In my Negro surrogate video, showed you who some of them were and defined the type of different Negro surrogates you might run into. But we have to be resolved as we go over all of this information that's been put out, and there's going to be a whole lot more, but I'm taking a time out, if you will, at halftime, so to speak, as I move through the syllabus, the outline here, giving a relatively overall review of what we've covered and why. But older men, we've got to get and keep that synergy established with these younger black men, your sons, your nephews, if you will, even if you don't have any from a family relationship, you're 35, 40, 45, whatever. If you can be a mentor and understand the importance of this platform and the mindset of what we've got to have as black men in America. Are we resolved to understand that voting and Black Lives Matter and all of these other things are distractions? Are we resolved that we have to understand the importance of our image? The word resolution, coming from the word resolved, means a firm decision to do or not to do something. Resolution. A firm decision to do or not to do something. One of my videos, I had a very heavy heart on what was going on here in Charlotte weeks ago. And that plays out all over the country with these drive-by shootings and youth violence. I think I saw a video headline or an article headline of Deion Sanders, the coach of the black school down in Jackson, Mississippi. And he was making some appeal for the youth in that community to stop the violence. So apparently there's shenanigans going on down there in Jackson, Mississippi. They're all over the place. And here in Charlotte, not too long ago, just unbelievable. Ended up drive-by unloading over 100 and something rounds into a house, killing a 3-year-old child. They apprehended the main 2 or 3 suspects. I haven't followed up on or heard anything pertaining to that very ugly, gruesome story, but that's something that goes on all over America. I think discernment, intelligence, and balance, it would go a long way with that, as well as other things. There's a myriad of things that have to happen with respect to Black empowerment, and it's unfortunate that so much of that 7 out of 10 I've alluded to just blows my mind, how we have so many Black people in America who can actually be this lost about subject matters affecting us. But voices like mine, voices like yours, who are advocating for tangible such as reparations, among other things. President Obama, when he was in office, shot that down. You've got coon nigger surrogates like Larry Elder. I talked about him. We've got a Congressional Black Caucus headed up by James Clyburn primarily. They never advocate anything pertaining to reparations. I've seen a couple of sound bites where reparations have been brought up, and some other recognizable, if you will, Congressional Black Caucus members look at it and assess it, but there's never any serious steamroll energy behind it. They're party first. It's so frustrating and debilitating, if you will, to want to advocate simply for the love of my people to come up, get rid of the psychological tentacles that chattel slavery has pierced our psyche with all for these 400 and something years, and it's still being manifested. We still manifest behavior overall. It's like they've got us on autopilot. They don't have me on autopilot, of course, but I'm just saying, us collectively as a group overall, the Black community, we just decade after decade after decade after decade in every aspect of life, in every outlier of society. Wouldn't matter what the sovereign ideology of the country is. You're still going to have to deal with an educational a criminal justice, a social construct, and a financial economic impact of people in the country. And we find ourselves as America's permanent underclass in every major outlier that a society has to have to function. And we've got people, as I explained, in those three categories of black clergy, black politicians, and black educators. I ride them so hard in a sense because, boy, what I would do to have every 7 days, think about it, every 7 days, every Sunday, and the church still primarily is the most racially polarized day in America. Every Sunday, a black pastor, bishop, preacher, whatever, mega church or storefront, he's got a black man, a black woman, black children, black adolescents, all of which run the complete gamut of the socioeconomic spectrum in front of him every 7 damn days. And the best he can do is touch 3 people and tell them it's going to be all right. Congressional Black Caucus. The name implies you're supposed to be for everything black. You're pathetic. Our black educators, put an asterisk by them, I think, in a video that I talked about. They continue to acquiesce to a white controlled curriculum. Even at some of our HBCUs, there's not even a black history. They're not black history classes that are being taught, apparently at an overwhelming majority of them, according to Dr. Umar Johnson on what he discovered. He made that statement on The Breakfast Club on an interview. I thought that was interesting. You would think a historically black college and university, that would be one of the requirements, probably your freshman year. And God, I would hope at a historically black college and university, you bring in the heat. Who knows? You probably wouldn't. I look at some of the emphasis that are put on some of our black history makers at the Washington, D.C. I haven't gone and seen it, but I have family members who've been there. I asked them a few questions. Not no real emphasis put on people like John Henrik Clarke, Minister Farrakhan. Those black men and women in particular, Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, who advocate unapologetically black. Everything is a kumbaya ride. Everything is just please let us have a seat at the table. James Clyburn, several months ago, talking about some stuff politically. Now we have hope. Now we have hope. When are we going to have tangibles? When are we going to have results? Hope has its place, no doubt about it, in our human dynamic of living. But when are we going to get some concrete rubber meeting the road for Black America? Now we have hope. 460 something years, and we're still, we got hope. Talked about the workplace environment that I observed. Part one and part two. Part one, the workplace environment. I blanketed in a no degree or certification or any type of thing established there. Those jobs are normally going to be heavy physical requirement type of things. Basically, all you need is a high school education or a GED, and you can operate and function in that. And some of the things I've seen with our people in those type of work environments are just ridiculously pathetic. Everything from fights breaking out, just dysfunction and discord all over the place. And I'm seeing it with my people. There are Asian people in there, there are Latino, Hispanic people in there. Don't see them with the emotional tirade. But again, we're the ones who have the distinction of lineage coming from chattel slavery and so forth. And boy, has it done a number. You see, so I've seen so much of the dysfunction in the workplace. You can see several of our social ills being manifested. I do when you go to work. Then in the workplace dynamic in part two, that environment where you have to have a degree and or some type of certification or technical skill or something. But even in that environment, it's a different type of bullshit for a black man. But you come across dysfunction and ridiculousness in some cases in the so-called blue to white collar professional envelope. We talked about that. And again, we went over the nigger surrogate video. Excuse me. With this time out, taking this time out, I try to keep these videos an hour or less. Talk to you about my background as a master training specialist. In the middle of being an entrepreneur again right now as we speak. I'm trying to get some other things going. Kind of a hybrid. I do work as a contractor on one side and doing some entrepreneurial things on the other. Trying to do my best to help my people with what God has blessed me with. And I talked about that. Live presentations, and I think I've made that statement here on this platform. Black men in particular. Black women too, if some of them are listening, but black men. Things that you've learned and acquired accolades, your I love me walls of your life and so forth. If you're not utilizing those things to help our people, what the hell good are they? We've got to have our young men resolved. Our community is, some would say it's been going to hell in a handbasket for a while, but still endeavoring to reach somebody here. Still endeavoring to, we have hope, as Clyburn would say. And I said, hope has its place. But we need to see this hope through to where rubber is meeting the road and we get our concrete intangibles, everything from reparations to serious critical reform of our education, economic, and criminal justice outliers. And that would come across, I believe, if we simply had a quid pro quo. You will not get this vote and the money that comes along. Very expensive to run a campaign at practically any level, certainly the gubernatorial, governor, which is to say governor and Senate, Congress level, and God knows the White House. But some of these local municipalities can get intensified to where a whole lot of money can be spent at that level, city council level. At any rate, if black people went into it with a sense of quid pro quo, again, Clifford Murray, this has been a review of what we've covered so far. Trust. Our older men are establishing some synergy with younger men, getting them resolved on a lot of the issues we've covered so far to date, and things that we will continue to cover and move ahead and move forward throughout the syllabus, throughout this outline, throughout Cliff's office. I love you more than you know. Thank you, gentlemen.